All right, so Proverbs chapter 6. Proverbs chapter 6. And it ties in with our question, how close is too close? How close is too close? Proverbs chapter 6, verses 27 and 28. Can a man take fire in his bosom, and his clothes not be burned? Can one go upon hot coals, and his feet not be burned? All right, so I want you to kind of remember Proverbs 6. Having this question in our minds is, how close is too close? Okay. We've jumped, actually, let's turn to Hebrews chapter 11. We've jumped from Joshua into Gideon last week, and now this week we're jumping further ahead to Samson. So we're doing hops and skips and bounds here. So Hebrews chapter 11, verses 32 through 34. Hebrews chapter 11, verses 32 through 34. And what shall I say, and what shall I more say? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon, and of Barak, and of Samson, and of Jephthah, and of David also, and Samuel, and of the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, waxed valiant in fight, turned to flight the armies of the aliens. Right? So, in Hebrews 11, surprisingly, we see a name there. How many of us, when we think of Samson, go, yeah, Hebrews 11. He's up in there. He belongs there. And no hands, right? But yet, there he is in Hebrews 11, our buddy Samson. All right, so we're going to take a look at him today. So starting in Judges chapter 13 is where we start to see our buddy Samson. Judges 13. We'll read verses 1 through 5. And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of the Philistines 40 years. And there was a certain man of Zorah, of the family of the Danites, whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and bare not. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto the woman, and said unto her, Behold now, thou art barren, and bearest not, but thou shalt conceive, and bear a son. Now therefore beware, I pray thee, and drink not wine nor strong drink, and eat not any unclean thing. For lo, thou shalt conceive, and bear a son, and no razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite unto God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. All right, so there we go. There's our quick little summary there. What do we have going on in verse 1? We've seen this pattern before. What's happening? Yeah, Israel did evil again, right? How do we know they did evil? It's in the sight of the Lord, right? Okay, so who's setting up the rules of what is right and what is wrong? God is, right? Who is the ultimate authority, the ultimate judge? God is, right? So it's funny that we're in the book of Judges, but here we have God as the ultimate judge here. Okay? Very good. So they did evil in the sight of the Lord, and because they did evil in the sight of the Lord, what is their punishment currently? right? They were delivered into the hands of the Philistines to be oppressed. 40 years. All right? And now then we have the introduction of Samson's family. And there was a certain man of Zorah of the family of the Danites, right? Whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and bare not. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto who? Why did the angel of the Lord appear to the woman? Why not him? Who, in the scenario of barren people, Abraham and Sarah, for example, who did the angel appear to? The husband, right? Okay. So why did the angel appear to Manoah's wife here? What thinkest thou? Wife?
I think that she may have been more ready to listen.
More ready to listen?
Yeah, more ready to listen. She told her husband what the message was, and he didn't believe her. He didn't think it was real.
Okay. What else?
Well, he had special instructions for her, not necessarily for him.
Why?
She was carrying the baby, he wasn't.
Right? Okay. So the angel appears to her because she has what? There's direct involvement, right? He has special instructions for her. What are those instructions? Why not? Why not?
In the future, this will be a Nazarite, and I guess if it's in her bloodstream, it might be in the baby's bloodstream. I'm not really sure what God intended, but if he's set apart, he's being set apart, boom, even in the womb.
Right there in verse 5. For lo, so the instructions are given in 3 and 4, and in verse 5, for lo, thou shalt conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite unto God from the womb. Right? So her actions directly affect the child, right? Okay. So for the process of the separation to work, she has to be a part of that. So the instructions are being given to her. Okay? And in verse 5, what interesting word do we see that starts with a B? What? Nope. No bears. Begin. What does that mean? We don't know what begin means? To start something. Right? What is the beginning? What's going to begin? Deliverance is going to begin. Is deliverance going to be complete? No, it's not. It's going to begin. When do we actually see it being completed? Not until the time of the kings. One of our more famous kings. It starts with the D. David. Wow, very good. All right. We're a little slow this morning. All right. So this whole process, Samson, going into Samuel, going into Saul, going into David, right? We have this whole mess with the Philistines going on that whole time. Okay? In verse 24, we see that Samson is born. Yay! Okay? What do we know about the Nazirite vow that's mentioned in verse 5? Okay? No fruit of the vine. What else? That's it? That's all we got? 2 things. Right? That's the whole point behind the vow. Being separate unto God. All right, very good. So if we take a look at Numbers chapter 6. Numbers chapter 6. We see the Nazirite vow being described for us. Numbers chapter 6, verses 1 through 8. Numbers chapter 6, verses 1 through 8. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, so where are these qualifications? Where are these specifications coming from? From the Lord himself, okay? And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, whether either man or woman shall separate themselves to vow a vow of a Nazirite, to separate themselves unto the Lord. He shall separate himself from wine and strong drink, and shall drink no vinegar of wine, or vinegar of strong drink, neither shall he drink any liquor of grapes, nor eat moist grapes or dried. All the days of his separation shall he eat nothing that is made of the vine tree, from the kernels even to the husk. All the days of the vow of his separation shall there no razor come upon his head, until the days be fulfilled, in the which he separateth himself unto the Lord. He shall be holy, and he shall let the locks of the hair of his head grow. And all the days that he separateth himself unto the Lord, he shall come at no dead body. He shall not make himself unclean for his father, or for his mother, or for his brother, or for his sister, when they die, because the consecration of his God is upon his head. All the days of his separation he is holy unto the Lord. So who can partake of this vow? Anyone, right? Man or woman, right? There's no difference there. Chuck mentioned that there's no fruit of the vine. To what extent does that go? Everything, right? No iteration of it at all, right? Not even raisins, right? Nothing. Skin and all, right? No strong drink, anything of the vine tree, nope, not for you. No razor upon his head, right? So it says that the locks of his hair are going to be long. Okay? What else? What else is there? Right? No dead, right? And it goes as far as to say, look, not even for your parents, not for your family, not anything, right? So it's very, we would call it extreme, right? Very cut and dry. Unclean? No, nothing, nada, right? Any fruit of the vine? Nothing. Away, don't touch, away, right? What else do we got? Long hair, no razor, nothing. No trims, no split ends, nothing. Nothing, right? Okay. What else? There's one more detail that's there. There's one more detail that's there. Well, that's the purpose of the vow. That's the whole purpose. Right? But there's one more detail that's there. Huh? Right? That kind of falls into the whole fruit, anything, all parts of it. No. What else? That's the purpose of the vow. What else? Is it forever? Not necessarily. Right? So there is a time frame. Right? There's a time frame involved with this. So how long can it be? As long as you make it. Right? As long as you make it. Okay? Very good. So, who else can you think of that we know of that probably was, that's a good way of phrasing it, who that we think also was a Nazarite? Samuel. Samuel's the only other one that we know of that was like that. You could make the argument for Jesus, can't prove it. All right. Samuel, if we take a look at 1 Samuel 1, verse 11. 1 Samuel 1, verse 11. And she, being Hannah, in verse 11, and she vowed a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if thou wilt indeed look on the affliction of thy handmaid and remember me, and not forget thine handmaid, but wilt give unto thine handmaid a man-child, then I will give him unto the Lord all the days of his life, and there shall no razor come upon his head. Right? Okay, and it starts with there. So he's being lent to the Lord for his whole life, right? And no razor is coming upon his head. So there's a similar separation unto God. Whether it's the whole full Nazarite, I don't know, I can't prove it. But there are similarities in this with Samuel. So now if you were to compare Samuel and Samson, who's the godly one? Right? We definitely hold them in different regard, don't we? Right? Okay. But Samson does find himself in, rare company. Right? Few people are mentioned as having this Nazirite vow. Right? Samuel being one that we can probably go with. Right.
I'm sure the Lord probably dealt with them, but the Lord said he will.
Mm-hmm. So, from what we know about Samson, did Samson get his strength from his long hair? No, he did not. Did Samson get his strength from the vow itself? Because I made the vow, now I'm strong. No, right? So where did Samson actually get his strength from? From God. Why? Why? Why was that God's will for his life? He had a mission, right? What was his mission? Right? To begin that deliverance. Right? Okay? Very good. So if we go back to Judges. Judges chapter 14. We still have to think about our question of how close is too close. Okay? As we look at Samson's life, there is a back and forth between him and the Philistines. Him and the Philistines, and back and forth and back and forth. Right? And each volley and return comes with bigger and bigger consequences. All right? And I'm hoping we can see that in the time that we have this morning, and which bears into our question of, okay, how close is too close? All right? So in Judges chapter 14, verse 1, and Samson went down to Timnath and saw a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines. Okay, so I'm hoping that most of us here are somewhat familiar with the life and the story of Samson, because we don't have time to go into everything. There's a lot of stuff that's there in the 3 chapters of his life. But this first instance, we go straight from Samson being born in end of chapter 13. And in 14, verse 1, he saw a woman and he's looking to get married. So there's a huge gap of time that got jumped there. All right. So he sees this woman of Timnath. And he tells his father and mother, look, get her for me to wife. Okay? So now, of what heritage was this woman? She's a Philistine, right? So there's a Philistine woman that's involved now. When you see Israelite and a woman of foreign heritage, what comes into your mind? There should be two words that come into your mind that gets talked about a lot in Proverbs. Chuck. That's also good. It ties back into Proverbs. A strange woman, right? Now, strange doesn't mean weird, per se. It just means it doesn't belong there. Okay? So those two don't belong there. Both Old Testament and Chuck's New Testament reference show those two do not belong together, right? But what is happening here? If we look at verse 4. But his father and his mother knew not that it was of the Lord, that he sought an occasion against the Philistines. For at that time the Philistines had dominion over Israel. Right? So, this is the beginning. Right? In Judges 14, this is the beginning. This is how God is starting it off. All right? Samson sees woman, he goes, her. Right? Get her. Okay? And then we have the trips from Israel back to Timnath, right? So one of the times that he's going down there, the lion comes on him. Right? And what does he do? Tears it apart, right? Kills the lion. Okay, wait a minute. What just happened? What just happened? What happened? What went wrong? Right? We've got a dead thing being involved. Right?
But Samuel also gives a lamb. So is it a dead thing at all? Or is it just a dead body of a person?
It is not just a person. It's going to be a dead body of all. Now, Samuel's an interesting trick because he's also not the high priest, but he's the high priest. He's replacing Eli. He's got a different role than Samson does. He has a different sanctification. Is that a good word? I don't know if that's a good word to use. Because it's not like a different salvation or anything like that, but he has a different purpose, a different role. Because if you think about it, God asks us to do some weird things sometimes, right? Did you remember who that dude was? Who was the guy, the prophet that married Gomer, the whore? But he was a priest. Hosea, thank you. Right? He's a priest. Is he supposed to have any dealings with a harlot? No, he's supposed to marry strictly of Levi. But yet, who told him to go find and marry her? God did. Okay? Adam and Eve in the garden, they sin. What's the first thing God does with them? Covers them up. Right? But what does he tell Isaiah to do? Poor Isaiah. You know? Right? Poor Isaiah. Don't eat any unclean thing. Again, go back to Isaiah. What was he asked to eat? I feel bad for Isaiah. You know? Right? So sometimes God asks us to do some weird things, but it's definitely him that's doing it. Even the vow itself, right? My wife brought this up last night. Okay, wait a minute. Is it good for a man to have long hair? Then why is he being told to do it? Right? In this separation, Who are you putting yourself under? Right? You're putting yourself under the Lord. And it's an extreme. Are you willing to do it? Right? Are you going to bear that shame? Isaiah, Hosea, Samson, Samuel, whoever, right? Are you going to do what God asks you to do? You have the chance to get out anytime you want. Right? Much like our Christian lives. We have the possibility of being as separate, as holy, as spiritual as we want. Are you willing to do it? Right? And judging by the state of our churches and our country, the answer to that is mostly no. Right? But we see this back and forth then. And you can tell it's wrong with Samson and the lion, because the next time around when his family comes with, what does he give them? He gives them of the honey of his kill, but does he tell them where it came from? No. Why not? Because he knows he shouldn't have done it. Right? Now, killing the lion is one thing. Because if a lion attacks you, Ian, what are you going to do? You're going to defend yourself, right? So that's not really the point. But the next time when he comes back through, he voluntarily goes to it and takes out of it. And then not only that, he shares it with others and doesn't tell them. Yeah. Yeah, exactly why. Because that's going to smell wonderful. That's going to be fully intact, you know. So, yeah, it's good stuff there. So in verses 15 and 16 of Judges 14, we now see it came to pass on the seventh day. Remember, there was this riddle that Samson gave in his wedding. And we see that it came to pass on the seventh day that Samson's wife, they said unto Samson's wife, entice thy husband that he may declare unto us the riddle, lest we burn thee and thy father's house with fire. Have ye called us to take that we have? Is it not so? And Samson's wife wept before him and said, thou dost but hate me and lovest me not. Thou hast put forth the riddle, etc., etc., etc. Right? So, where is this woman's loyalties? Is it to Samson? It's funny that you say it's to her father. They were threatened, right? They were threatened with what? Death by fire, right? We'll burn thee and thy father's house. Why? Because you lovest me not, right? What ends up happening to her and her father's house? They get burned anyway, right? So we have the riddle. He finally relents in 17. He cracks and tells her the answer to the riddle. She tells the men, who then respond to Samson at the last minute. Samson goes and kills 30 people then to fulfill the prize for the riddle for these guys, and he storms off in a huff. Then his wife is given in Judges 15:1. Yeah, to his companion, and of 14:20. But Samson's wife was given to his companion, whom he had used as his friend. But it came to pass within a while after, in the time of wheat harvest, that Samson visited his wife with a kid. And he said, I will go into my wife into the chamber. But her father would not suffer him to go in. Right? So there's an interesting relationship there that Samson has with these people. There were 30 people there. Were they allies? Were they friends of Samson? Randy? No, not those people. 30 other ones did, right? But he had used them as his friends. They weren't his friends. But you're going to be the friends for the day because I need people here and none of my Israelite friends are coming with. Right? Okay, so that's what's going on. His wife was given to another, so he gets ticked off, and what does he do? We got the foxes that get tied together. So he ties together these foxes with a firebrand and sets all the Philistines' fields on fire. Philistines took that with great happiness because they didn't want those fields. Right? And they retaliate by burning her and her father's house with fire. Right? So the thing that she was afraid of happened anyway. And then Samson gets ticked off because of that. So we have this back and forth. But you can see the consequences of them are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So after the Philistines burn the father-in-law and what was supposed to be the wife's house down, right? He goes back to Judah. Philistines come into the land. Judah binds him up and betrays him and sends him off. And then in that process, he kills 1,000 of them with the jawbone of an ass. Right? So again, it's getting bigger. Let's see what else. In Judges 16, we now have the harlot in Gaza. Samson went down to Gaza and there saw an harlot and went in unto her. And it was told the Gazites, saying, Samson is come hither. And they compassed him in and laid wait for him all night in the gate of the city, and were quiet all the night, saying, in the morning, when it is day, we shall kill him. And Samson lay till midnight, and arose at midnight, and took the doors of the gate of the city, and the 2 posts, and went away with them, bar and all, and put them upon his shoulders, and carried them up to the top of an hill that is before Hebron. All right, so here he is now in the city, again, where he does not belong, doing what he should not be doing. And now it's night and the gates are shut and locked. So what has happened to our buddy Samson? He's now trapped. He doesn't know it, but he's trapped. And where are they lying in wait for him? At the main gate of the city. All right. So now what happens is he gets up. He gets up at midnight and says, see ya, I'm out of here. Now, what's interesting in this story is that in these cities that there are usually multiple gates where one can come in and out. And that these people are lying in wait for him at the main gate of the city. From what I understand is that Samson did actually not go out through the main gate of the city. He went out through one of the other side gates. Which tells us what? When you go into a city, Dennis, when you travel into a city, do you know where all the roads in and out are? No. So in order to know a side route out, what must Samson know? He's got to know the city somewhat. Which tells you there's some sort of familiarity that's there. Okay? So he's like, I'm not even bothering to go out that way. I'm going out this way. But he's got to know that this way exists. And then he finds it locked. And what does he do? Takes it all with. Whole thing. Right? Even if we just look at our door, our little door there, it has a frame. Right? Top, posts, and it was locked. So there's a bar that goes across to keep people from barging in, right? He took it all with. Ian, you look like a big dude. Can you take that door out for me, please? Probably could. The whole thing? Just rip it right out? Yeah? Okay. Yeah. But that's what he did. Except it's not drywall and plaster, it's stone and beams. Okay? And then he carries it off. Now, Hebron is 36, 39 miles from Gaza here. Now, whether he carried it 36 miles, I don't know. I can't prove that. That's just what the words say. But what they actually think happened is that he took it up to a hill that could see Hebron, which is still 9 miles away. Either way, Ian, can you carry the door for 9 miles? No, right? I mean, that's a hollow core door, and he doesn't want to do it for 9 miles. Okay? So either way, the point still stands that that's not normal. Valerie. Yeah. Yeah, it's solid wood doors, bars, beams, everything. Off we go. And then doesn't think to put it down. You know? I mean, I'm sure if it was Ian, he'd just go, boom, and then walk out and just leave the doors there a mess, right? He's like, I'm not carrying that. I don't want your dumb door. But he just hauls off. All right, now what are you going to do? You want to trap me in? All right, go ahead. I'll just take the whole door. See ya. Goodbye. I don't know. So. Oh, yeah.
And it's a gate.
Yeah?
And it's carts and all that.
Yeah, this is not light stuff.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't weigh at least 1,000 pounds.
Yeah, it very well could have.
At least 500.
It's still more than Ian wants. All right, so as we move on, in Judges chapter 6, we now have Delilah, right? Delilah gets introduced. She's in the valley of Sorek, and he loved her, right? Did her love he? No, right? We see that again by the allegiances that are made there. The lords of the Philistines find out about her and him, and they come to her and look, each one of us, 1,100 pieces of silver. She's in, right? She's down for that. Think about how badly the lords of the Philistines wanted to get rid of Samson. Each of them offered 1,100 pieces of silver, and there were at least 5 lords. That is a ton of silver pieces. 5,500 to be exact, right? To give you some context, if you remember back in Genesis 23, when Abraham bought that field of Machpelah from Ephron, right? 400 pieces of silver. This is 5,500. Okay? What Achan stole just a couple weeks ago, 200 pieces of silver. Joseph was sold for 20. Christ was sold for 30. Right? So we see this is a ton. Right? Randy, quickly.
You could be, she was extremely treacherous. Could she have actually loved Samson?
She didn't love Samson. You look at verse 6. What does she say? And Delilah said to Samson, tell me, I pray thee, wherein thy great strength lieth, and wherewith thou mightest be bound to afflict thee. That seems pretty obvious. No. It's not even the curiosity part of, wow, where does your great strength lie? No. But now we can bind you and afflict you. Right? So what's going on there? Tell me exactly what I need to know. And he lies to her. Round 1. 7 widths, right? She comes back again in verse 10. Tell me exactly how we can do this. And he lies to her again, new ropes. In 13, tell me exactly how we can do this to her. But now what does he start to do? He gets closer to the truth, right? If you weave the locks of my head into basically a loom, right? Then I'll be weak, right? And he hauls that thing off. But see, now he's getting closer. How close is too close? Right? She's asking him exactly, Look, this is what we want to do to you. How do we bind you and then afflict you? Right? Then she pulls in 15 and 16, she pulls the same card that the original almost wife did. Oh, you don't love me. How sayest thou that thou lovest me? You've lied to me these 3 times. You don't love me. Samson, do you know what's going on here? You are a slow learner. What's interesting then in verse 16 is, and it came to pass when she pressed him daily with her words. So he's being pressed daily. 16. So that his soul was vexed unto death. Where did this all end up? He dies. Right? Now, if we take a look at Nehemiah, and we'll have to close with Nehemiah here. Nehemiah, Ezra 13, verse 26. So now, we've got comparisons between Samson and Samuel, right? And we don't think of Samson as being all that bright when it comes to women. Verse 26 of chapter 13. Did not Solomon, king of Israel, sin by these things? Yet among many nations there was no king like him who was beloved of his God, and God made him king over all Israel. Nevertheless, even him did outlandish women cause to sin. All right? So here we also have ties with Solomon. Right? So somewhere between what we would consider the denseness of Samson and the wisdom of Solomon lies us. And what does it say? Even him caused to sin, right? All right, so we need to think about these things. How close is too close? Yes, he was used. Yes, he's in Hebrews. Yes, God began, but it wasn't good. It wasn't good. With that, though, we have to close our epic adventure through God's Word today, and you are dismissed.